Honestly, a lot of IFS is just healing the shame of like who we are, just like even if you just came to understand and appreciate that part and not consider it a bad part of you, even that would bring healing.
Welcome to the Mindfulness Within podcast, a space where healing isn't about fixing, it's about remembering what has always been whole. This is a podcast for therapists and those wanting to learn more about internal family systems. I'm your host, Gilbert Romero-Mewharter. Today we're entering sacred territory, one that is deeply personal, tender, and often surrounded by silence, our sexuality. For many of us, this is a space where shame has taken root. But what if healing was possible? What if, beneath the shame and silence, there is still something alive, wanting to be known, loved, and expressed? To help us explore this profound topic, I'm honored to welcome Forest Benedict as our guest today. Forest is a certified internal family systems therapist, licensed in California and Washington, with over 15 years of clinical experience. He provides online therapy that specializes in healing sexual shame and religious trauma. And he's also a sex and desire coach. Forest is the founder of Rewilding Desire, a powerful coaching program that helps people release shame, connect with their authentic desires, and reclaim their capacity for pleasure, using, of course, the wisdom of IFS. He's a published author, blogger, and content creator, and he shares his work across Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. We'll have those contacts there in the comment section. Today's conversation will invite you to listen deeply, not to just Forest's insight, but to the parts of you that hold desire, shame, longing, or even silence. These are not just ideas to understand. They are parts to meet with love. So, let's take a breath and let's begin. Forest, it's such an honor to have you here today. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here. I wonder if you might start us off on these sexual parts that carry so much shame.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really grateful to be here. We all come into the world with our sexuality being a really important part of who we are. It's very natural and it's very connected to our expressiveness and our creativity and our joy and pleasure and just being human. And yet culture and religion and trauma and so many things that we experience in this life, I would say, disconnect us from who we are sexually. And we get parts that learn to judge us for these expressions of who we are and learn how to manage and suppress who we are sexually and carry parts that carry a lot of shame about who we are sexually. And so I'd say we get really disconnected from who we are sexually. And so that's part of the journey is reconnecting with ourselves and healing what needs to be healed so that we can learn to really listen to our desires and find healthy ways to express them and really release all the stuff that the world has put on us that have disconnected us from who we are. I've experienced a lot of that healing myself, and I just love supporting other people in that journey as well.
You spoke so many truths. I think that many of us do feel shame around this topic, right? Like, to
Yeah,
talk about this out in the open feels like, well, you aren't supposed to talk about this out in the open.
seriously. Yeah.
Right. So, how do you kind of create some normalcy around talking about these sexual parts of us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're doing it now just by bringing it into the open. And I love IFS because it helps people like get to know themselves without the self judgment. To me, that brings a lot of normalcy to it because um, that's the thing. I feel like just so many of us feel like what's going on inside of us sexually is bad or shameful or something we need to hide. So, I definitely, as a therapist and coach, um, and person in the world just talking about sexuality, just love to open up spaces where we can talk about it without shame or judgment, but then also really want to support people in learning how to relate to themselves without shaming or judging who they are, but really getting to know themselves at a really deep level.
One of the things I really appreciate you for is your work around sexual abuse and sexual survivors.
Mm,
I'm wondering how much more complicated it becomes working with those different parts
mm.
when they've experienced this trauma in their life. That's already a taboo topic.
For people that have experienced that level of trauma, um, there can be even more shame and even more parts. Just um, I would say managing or preventing just protecting sexuality. The sexuality that's part of who we are. Um, and so, yeah, I think in order for people that have gone through those experiences to really feel freedom in expressing their sexuality, there's probably going to need to be some deeper healing around the actual events that happened when those experiences occurred and the beliefs that they took on when those experiences happened, and really releasing the jobs of all the parts that try and keep that from ever happening again or from getting like re-triggered inside a person. So, yeah, I think that deeper healing really is needed. You can't just make yourself go out there and just be sexual, and that's not really and your parts won't really let you anyways. So, y- you know, so yeah, I think deeper healing is really needed, and just so much self compassion too, because there's, probably so much self judgment or parts that blame themselves for what they went through. There's just so much to explore around that with so much self compassion, really.
As you were talking, I was just thinking of how strong the protector is of these parts. And I'm wondering, how do you gain the trust of that protector who definitely is like, nope, we've let that part out once before. It caused chaos and it's caused relationship hurts. Like, how how do we get past that protector when he is guns drawn, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I think, IFS just provides perfect framework for that because to me, it really starts with seeing that protector as like a hero, you know, like the one that helped you survive all that and get to where you are. And that's why I think when our self creates a relationship with that part, it can really feel like fully understood and appreciated. I don't think any part's going to stop doing what it's doing, nor would it feel safe to do that. It always has, until there's like a really deep understanding and appreciation for that part. Because, nothing, if we come in with an agenda like, oh, this part should stop doing this, it's probably going to be like, fuck you. You don't know what I'm managing in here.
Uh, Forrest, you said something that was like just so important about building that relationship
Mhm.
between the self and the protector. I know when I've worked with clients, like they're so enmeshed with that anger part, right? At this protector that says, I want you out of my way because I want to live my life better. And that protector's like, don't you remember the last time that I let you lose?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's why we just have to get to know these parts from a place of understanding and compassion and curiosity. Um, Nothing's going to heal through like force. And so I love IFS because it's just such a compassionate understanding. Honestly, a lot of IFS is just healing the shame of like who we are, just like even if you just came to understand and appreciate that part and not consider it a bad part of you, even that would bring healing.
Yeah, I think sometimes as therapists, like, we wanna go through the whole protocol, right? We wanna get to the
Yeah.
healing process,
Yeah.
and there's so much power within just the witnessing,
Yeah.
and so, for me, I always try and think of, like, I really wanna just build capacity in this individual right now, just to bear witness, right, of them
Mm.
repairing this relationship with their protector. And like you
Yeah.
were saying, just understand why they're there.
I've found it even to be a little bit in the way sometimes. I mean, I hate to say in the way, but like when the therapist or even the client knows a lot about IFS, it almost can kind of get in the way because parts that want to do IFS can kind of like be like, oh, we got to stick to this formula and we got to know the names of the parts and all this stuff. But I think, our parts just want to, there is a lot of healing in just the witnessing and just the compassion and slowing down the process. Sometimes slowing down actually speeds it up because it's not agenda driven. It's self. It's like from a place of curiosity and openness and like, oh, let's get to know all of you right now.
I just wanna point out how you said we have to slow the process down. We have to stop as therapists for sure. Like, I wanna hurry up and, like, get there, right? Like, I wanna get to the final spot when really that, um, understanding the part and befriending the part is, like, the most important thing we can do in that process,
Hmm.
and kind of get in touch with our own part that wants to be the perfect IFS therapist.
Yeah, totally.
And I wonder, like, how do you balance that along with
Hmm.
really thinking about the client in terms of this trauma that they want to release and have been carrying for so long?
Obviously, we want to help them heal the trauma. Um, but, depending on the complexity of the trauma and how much trauma and different factors, like this might be a slower process than just like going through, you know, the process we learn, the IFS process, Um, and so I think, yeah, that's one of the um, oh, what is it, like the 5 Ps or something? There's something about the qualities of self. One of them is patience and perseverance, and so I think that our clients can sense that, if we are patient with the process and not trying to make it so look goal oriented, because I don't know, in a sense that can kind of objectify the parts. It kind of dehumanizes them in a sense. It's like we're just, yeah, we have a goal here, And I feel like that the parts really need a lot more honor than that, and a lot more just meeting them at where they're at and not trying to change them or fix them or judge them. But um, the process works, though. It thoroughly works.
Like they're just objects, right?
Yeah,
Within themselves. But
yeah.
I always go back to that, the parts from inside out, right?
Oh, yeah,
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 like they are actually parts of us, and not what that we believe that they're little people, but they definitely are our thoughts, our feelings, our experiences, and that those can't just be picked up and put on a shelf, so to to say, but really our parts are things that we take with us, right? And I'm wondering how how you bring those frozen parts with them to the present in this very difficult experience that their system had.
yeah. Well, and so the first piece around objectifying them,
Mhm.
can I speak to that really quick?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because I think everybody experiences their parts differently. Some people see them as like animals that show up, or inner children or whatever. It's just different for everybody. I think it's unique, but I know for me, I when I connect with my parts, I see them as like myself at different ages. And like on my wall up here, like I won't show you, but I can just describe it. Like I have pictures of myself from baby all the way up to like adult. I have like tons, like a whole timeline of pictures of myself. Um and that's, to me, that's like a reparenting thing, and really a deep way of connecting with myself. But that's how I've experienced my parts. They'll be like, oh wow, this is that one right there that went through that, like so for me, it isn't, I don't objectify them. I see them as like me, like reparenting. um like I'll show you my tattoo, like being the daddy to my inner children, so to speak. So in that sense, I there is no objectifying. It's loving them, and really helping them, yeah, experience that, what they need from me. Um, and then, so tell me, could you say your question again about the unfreezing them from the past?
Yeah, how do you bring those how do you help clients bring those frozen parts forward to where they are today?
There's a couple pieces to that. You know, some of it is in just being in self and letting them experience who you are in self. That can have its own way of updating the parts, because a lot of them think that you're pretty young, um, and they're acting like you're pretty young and powerless and really don't know what you're doing in the world without them. So that's one way of kind of unfreezing them, so to speak, is like updating them to be like, oh wow, I'm not 5 years old anymore. Like there's somebody in charge now that actually has a lot of power and ability to act in this world. Um, so that's one way of kind of unfreezing. They can kind of like um, kind of come into the present more, be updated. But then also, like when you're going all the way back to an exile, the whole unburdening process, that really does, witness them in their trauma from a place of open-heartedness, um, and help, rewrite the trauma in a way that, you know, um, kind of gives it a healing experience that they needed at the time, and then kind of takes them out of the past into the goes to the unburdening process that actually, unburdens the trauma and the beliefs taken on and the shame, and bring in like the gifts, the strengths, the things that they need now or want or lost when all that happened. And it's just such a beautiful, it's kind of like an inner ceremony, I see it as, like it's just really a huge event that really does bring them out of that frozen place in the past.
Another important part that you make is just that this all begins when we're young. And one of the things we're going to be covering later on this month is a conversation with the Center for Early Relational Health and how all these parts form with us while we're young. So I hope you get to mark your calendars. Again, September 25th at noon. We'll put the link in the chat. And I hope that you all can join me, whether you're a parent, a therapist, or just want to know more about early relational health. We look forward to seeing you there. I think the word integration is so important
Yeah.
because I think, again, it goes back to what we promised at the beginning, right? We're not trying to get rid of you. We just don't want you to have
Yeah.
to work so hard.
Yeah.
And what are some of the jobs that generally these overburdened parts
Yeah.
generally want? What do you see?
Yeah. Well, um, can I just bringing it back to can I bring it back to sexuality?
Of course,
Because
yes.
yeah, because I think that there's a lot of parts show up and have lots of jobs, but I think especially around sexuality, like you might have parts that like think that sexuality is a performance, that they need to act a certain way, or they need to like judge your body and make it change or look a certain way so that you can be sexual. Um, those are like parts that are common, I think, around sexuality. Um, or just, I mean, even like firefighter parts around sexuality, like people use sexuality to like um, numb out of their emotions or escape their emotions. Um, there can be dissociating parts when it comes to sexuality, like that, you're in a sexual experience, but there's some type of something that doesn't feel safe. So, a part will kind of dissociate you from the experience, take you out of it, even though you're physically there. Um, and, honestly, I'd say, especially around sexuality, probably the biggest boss part, if you want to call it that, for a lot of people is just this self-shaming part and self-criticism, and that's where a lot of the shame, there's the self-shaming part, and then there's the parts that hold all the shame. And that usually requires some healing because um it's like all the things that we judge ourselves about sexually, about our body, about our desires being wrong or shameful or sinful or perverted or too much or too little, or having to like fit like the norm of supposedly what sexuality is supposed to be like in the culture, or their orientation or gender, all these things that are judged as not fitting in with like the culture, or the religion. To me, that's the biggest place of where healing needs to happen. Is, I mean, so much healing would happen if if this part just stopped judging us for all the stuff, all the ways that we want to be sexual, and that just such judging our natural desire. To me, that's like a major part that would, and that's like the source of so much of our shame is our own self-judging parts.
I think what I really heard you say today is that this is really complex. It's not just about the act or how we identify or how we want to experience sex. It's everything.
And it's can come down to every thought and every look. I mean, I grew up super religious, so I had parts that were very hyper vigilant around not sinning sexually, and it was like a constant suppression of my sexuality, you know. It really took some healing for that part to, even once I left religion, it took some healing to realize that I didn't have to be super hyper vigilant about my every sexual thought or desire. So, you know, it really does take some healing still, even when you leave those oppressive systems or belief systems. Um, but yeah, it's an important journey. It's that so much healing usually needs to happen before we can feel really free to be like our sensual, wild selves.
I love that you say like our central wild selves because
Yeah.
there are some constraints, right, that we feel either because of religion or personal beliefs or the way we were brought up, right? Rather than just being having these open, honest conversations where we can talk about this is again the 12-layer cake. It's not just the chocolate with some white icing
Yeah.
on top.
Yeah, totally.
I wonder, Forrest, like, how do we even enter the conversation about sex and sexuality when sometimes we as therapists even have some shame and guilt around that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why we need to be doing our own work because especially around sexuality, you know, like if the people we work with sense that we are judging their parts or how they might want to express themselves, like there's really no safety in that type of a conversation, you know? Like how could somebody possibly open up or even get curious about their own sexuality if the person that they're working with is, you know, they sense the judgment. I mean, they can sense it, you know. They can sense if they're safe to explore these things with us.
Well, going back to what you said earlier, right? Those parts are already on high alert
Oh yeah.
and for their safety. And if they're picking up on some therapist that hasn't done their work or is not continuing
Hmm.
to do their work,
Hmm.
it can set off the alarms and the system shuts down.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, I mean, there's, I would say, constant messages from every direction about, you know, that make people judge their own sexuality.
So, one of the questions I really like to ask is what do you feel is most important for either therapists to know or even people seeking IFS therapy for sex or sexual identity or all the different things, right? What would you want them to know?
I mean, I'd say the way that I see and experience sexuality right now is that it is like one of the most important things in this life is our sexuality. And so, um, yeah, I mean, for me, like this has to be something we address and work with people with because I don't know, like if if people are not feeling fully or more fully free to be themselves sexually, like that in and of itself can be a source of depression and a source of, you know, anxiety, lower quality of life. it can just feel very like lonely and disconnected from ourselves. And yeah, I guess I just want to emphasize just how much better life can be for any one of us if we are connected to our sexuality and expressing it, feeling that freedom to express it. So, I mean, to me, it has to be brought into the conversation. It can't be just forgotten about. I mean, that's another piece to it, right? It's if we don't even ask about sexuality, that is kind of sending a message of sorts that that's like off limits, or I just feel like we have to see our clients as a whole person, and sexuality as like as a major part of who a person is, not just like a little extra part. So I think that's like significant. I've realized that in my own life, which I which does bring a lot of wisdom, I think, to the work that I do because I've done a ton of work around this. But yeah, I just think we gotta like take this seriously, this topic.
One of the things you just brought up, I was thinking about just the concept of being connected to self and how important that is. And that if we don't have that, it does show up in these other ways: depression, anxiety, overeating, undereating. I'm wondering, like, how do you like to promote this connectedness to self, especially when it comes to sexuality?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think there's a lot of value in like learning to connect with ourselves on a regular basis. Um, you know, there is an IFS practitioner or therapist, Patricia Rich, and she does a lot of like writing and has a lot of training specifically around sexuality and IFS. And she's even like designed like the self qualities in sexuality. And I just think that yeah, there's benefits to um, pursuing more of a self led sexuality that really checks in with parts. So there's more like internal consent. That's one way to put it. Internal consent from like you're listening to all the parts involved with making sexual decisions. Um, Not that you have to be super. I mean, I do think being in self is like being in a flow state. So it's not like you have to be like hyper vigilant around all of your parts that are present. But I do think, yeah, there's just so much benefit to checking in with all the parts of us before, especially before making like a serious sexual decision. But then, yeah, there's also just like a trust in ourselves and in our body that comes over time as well. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to it, but um, what can be problematic is if I think one part decides when other parts are saying, "Don't do this." That like that really needs to be listened to. I think, especially around sexuality, because that's when we really can get ourselves into trouble and get into situations that really, like are there's reasons why these parts are chiming in like, oh, wait a second, there's a red flag here, or something about this doesn't feel safe. But party wants to just say, fuck this and do it anyway. So, there's some real benefits in slowing down when you're noticing parts saying, hold on a second. We gotta, let's think about this. You know what I mean?
Ah, what a beautiful way to kind of end the same segment. I can't even believe we've been through our time. But yeah, going back to the idea of consent, right? And that's how we enter into a client system is only with their consent. Yeah. Uh, well, Forrest, on every episode, we kind of do a couple of mindfulness exercises. I wonder if you might be open to maybe doing one. I'll start one, and then if you wouldn't mind taking the second one, we would appreciate that. Okay. So, this first exercise is just meeting a part that holds sexual shame. So, let's just begin with a moment of inward connection. Find a comfortable position. Close your eyes if it feels safe. And take a few slow, grounding breaths. Feel your body supported. Now gently turn your attention inward and ask, is there a part of me that holds sexual shame? You might notice a sensation in your body, a memory, an emotion, or perhaps a voice that says, I shouldn't feel this way. Or even, this part of me is bad. You don't need to change anything. Just be with what's here. Ask this part, what are you afraid would happen if you let go of this shame? Where did you learn to feel this way? What do you wish I understood about you? Let this part know you are here now, not to judge it, but to understand it. Let it know it doesn't have to carry this burden alone. You're listening. You are leading. You are the self. Take another breath and offer this part some appreciation for trying to protect you. And when you're ready, gently return to the present moment. Forest, would you mind leading us in the next mindfulness exercise?
Yeah, I would love to. So I call this a rewilding desire meditation. So take a few deep breaths and settle in. If it feels right, close your eyes and allow your awareness to turn inward. And inside, ask gently, is there a part of me that holds desire? It could be a desire for sex, or intimacy, or connection, or freedom. And just notice how this part shows up. In your body and any images or words. Is it shy or excited or scared? Just observe without pushing or judging. And welcome this part with an open heart. Now ask with curiosity this part, what do you long for? And ask it, when did you last feel free to express yourself, if ever? what would you need from me to feel safe and seen? And what would it feel like if your desire was not only welcome, but wild and free and fully alive? Desire is not a problem to fix. It is a pathway back to your deepest truths and your authentic self-expression. If it feels right, place a hand on your heart or belly or cheeks, wherever you sense this part most. And just let it know it belongs. Its longings are beautiful and important. Take a final breath with that possibility. Thank the part for trusting you and opening up, sharing. And then just saying goodbye inside for now, and slowly, gently bringing your awareness back into the room.
If you like what you're hearing, please like, subscribe, and share. And you can always find Forest's contact information, along with my own, below in the comment section. As we begin to close today's episode, I invite you to notice what's present in you now. Maybe something new stirred. Maybe an old part finally felt seen. Maybe you felt discomfort, curiosity, or even a gentle sense of hope. Wherever you are, it's enough. This is deep work, the kind of work that doesn't happen in one sitting, but in many small sacred moments turning inward. Today we explored how internal family systems can help us befriend the parts of us that carry sexual shame and the parts that hold desire. These parts have often been hidden, judged, or misunderstood, especially for those of us carrying the weight of religious trauma or cultural conditioning. As Forrest reminded us, our desires are not dangerous. They are doorways. Doorways to healing, to connection, to wholeness. So what now? Perhaps your next step is simply noticing how shame shows up in your day-to-day life and just asking, whose voice is this? Maybe you begin journaling conversations with your desire parts. Maybe you explore Forrest's work through Rewilding Desire, or follow his reflections online. And if you're a therapist, maybe you start asking your clients what parts of them have never had permission to want. Wherever this path leads you, remember, healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about welcoming back all the parts of you that have been waiting to be loved. Your shame doesn't make you broken. Your desire doesn't make you bad. You are human. And your heart and parts are longing to be held by you. A deep thank you to Forest Benedict for guiding us through this conversation and for the brave, beautiful work he brings into the world. Make sure to check out forestbenedict.com and rewildingdesire.com to learn more, and follow Forest at Forest Benedict LMFT and at Rewilding Desire on social media. If something in this episode touched you, we invite you to share it with someone else walking the path of healing. Subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what landed most deeply for you. Until next time, take care of your parts, trust the wisdom of yourself, and remember, you are whole, you are worthy of desire, and you are never alone.